As Israel and the Jewish people continue to be targeted and ostracized around the world, Israeli sports are now under threat. Well, British sports journalist Jonny Gould joins us now from London. Jonny, what can you tell us about the current situation with Israeli sports?
Raj, there is now a concerted effort to close out Israel from international society. And it kind of accelerated with the unilateral demand by the former allies, it must be said, of Britain, Canada, and Australia to recognize the state of Palestine, all of this following the French decision. And the shock that it comes from the Anglosphere seems to have accelerated this desire to get Israel off the map in terms of culture and entertainment and sports. And if they do that, if they succeed, this is a very, very dark day for the world.
Well, let's talk about, let's start with the big one. Obviously, soccer, or as you guys call it, football. That's the big international sport. That's the one that has the most punch. What's going on with UEFA?
UEFA have made it very clear with some really, really shocking pronouncements, and Gianni Infantino, the director, saying that it was an open question that Israel should be thought about as excluded ahead of the Europa League final between Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United, two English teams. It said that we should stop killing civilians and stop killing children. This was this huge banner ahead of the opening ceremony for the game itself. And they brought with them the young mascots, as they always do. The players hold the hand of a young child. And apparently, two of the children were from Gaza, and they took the knee by the poster, which is a sort of George Floyd symbol of oppression against people in their paradigm of the weak and the strong. To add insult to injury, Tottenham Hotspur is perceived to be, whether correct or not, to be a widely supported Jewish football team in England. It's not particularly the most well-supported Jewish supporters there is. There's also Arsenal, there's Manchester City and Manchester United. But by the by, Tottenham seem to have this reputation, so that it was a deliberate and concerted attempt to try to do that. And Israel has already been excluded from Asian football, and that was done in the 1970s. And so Israel was looking around for a continent to basically play their football, and that was Europe, which ironically raised the quality of Israeli football because they were playing the best continent of football players in the world. But now Europe wants to exclude them. What I would say is once they do exclude them, there is no way back for Israel. They will never lift this ban, because when Israel signed the Abraham Accords with 4 nations in 2020, did the Asian Football Federation allow them back? No, they didn't. So that to create a pariah state out of a democratic nation who is fighting its wars on 7 fronts continually, and as Benjamin Netanyahu said at the United Nations the other day, the Hamas killed dual citizens from nations which countries are criticizing Israel against. It's a shocking situation, and it rebounds terribly on the culture and reputation of the countries that are trying to do this.
Well, and it's not just soccer. Obviously, what was it, like a day ago, there was a report about Israel being basically banned from an Italian cycling race. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, Israel Premier Tech, which is the #1 Israeli cycling team and one of the great cycling teams of the world at the moment, are taking part in all sorts of major cycling tournaments. We saw at the Tour de France how the Israeli team was being shoved around and pushed around. And obviously, it's a security issue. You know, these very long mountain rides have fans going up and down them, and they can't really protect themselves from the cyclists. And now Giro dell'Emilia, the race that's going on in the Emilia-Romagna part of Italy, wants to ban Israel from taking part through security reasons. What they should be doing for the purpose of sporting competition is taking on the terrorist supporters. They shouldn't be banning the team. You know, sport should be free and independent of politics, and yet the governing bodies are conspiring with the politicians to basically make sport no different from the corrupt politics that's out there. It really is a very, very bad day for sporting competition. Every time Israel gets boycotted or banned from a tournament, it means the beginning of the end of sport being an internationally accepted form of enjoyment.
Mm-hmm. Well, the ostracization, the maligning, the singling out of the Jewish people isn't something that's new, unfortunately, or the Jewish state. But it is shocking, I guess you could say, to see soccer teams and cycling teams. But Jonny, perhaps last question, I want to ask you to maybe put on your opinion hat more than just your commentator hat. The rebuttal folks will say, well, Russia's been banned because of their war in Ukraine and because what Israel's doing in Gaza, in a way they quote unquote deserve it. How would you respond to that?
Well, I hear talk that Russia and Belarus might be lifted from their bans. And once they lift Russia back into social acceptance within sport, it does seem to make the Israeli ban a little less likely. However, there's one rule for the world and one rule for Israel moving forward. What I would say as an English football fan is that the game was created completely apolitically in the 1860s and spread around the world in 2 or 3 decades, like Bilio. It spread to South America. It spread to the rest of Europe. And then they got so good at it by the turn of the century, they started beating us as well. So maybe it wasn't such a good idea. But in all seriousness, if it had been weighed down by this kind of politics in the 1880s and the 1890s, say Otto von Bismarck used it for the purposes of Prussia against France, then football would have never taken off. You cannot weigh down the beautiful game with politics like this. Sport should be absolutely about the sport itself. And as I say, it is a very, very bad day for the world of sport, not just for Israel, but for the day of sport if Israel does get boycotted or ostracized like this.
Well, Jonny, my friend, I appreciate your time.
Raj, thank you very much.